So, Yngwie, the first question, I guess, is your big life-changing moment. You're a kid in Stockholm and you see a documentary on Jimi Hendrix.
It was actually the news. And they didn't show him playing the guitar, it just showed him burn it. And to go back a little bit, what happened was I was the youngest in my family. I had an older brother and an older sister. And they were all very good musicians. And my mother sang in a choir and a jazz band and stuff like that. My uncle was a opera singer. You know, a lot of people were involved with that in my family. And obviously they wanted me to do something as well. So they gave me guitars and they gave me everything. On my 5th birthday, I got a guitar. On my 6th birthday, I got a trumpet. So I took lessons for trumpet and piano and stuff like that. But I never took guitar lessons. So anyway, so I had a guitar. 2 years later, September 18th, 1970, they showed on the news, today Jimi Hendrix died. And they showed him burn his guitar from Monterey Park. That's it. No music. So the revelation, the impact it had on me was that, wow, that's cool. I want to burn the guitar, you know. So that's why I started playing that same moment. I took the guitar off the wall and I started playing until the string broke. And I kept on going until the string broke again. And there were no more strings. And then I got a new set of strings. And my brother taught me how to tune it. And on it went. And yeah, that's what made me want to play the guitar in order to, you know, I figure you got to learn to play a little bit before you burn it. You know, what I decided to do when I started burning my guitars was instead of using the lighter fluid, I would use a mixture of potassium nitrate and sugar. And it goes off like a volcano. Nowadays, they don't let me do that anymore, but I used to do quite often.
So you're playing rock guitar and you're playing rock and roll, I guess, like other kids played rock and roll. And then you heard this guy, Gideon Kramer, play some Paganini?
Yeah. Once again, that's I have to explain a little more. What happened was on my 8th birthday, my older sister, Anne-Louise, God bless her, she gave me an album, which became my only album, and it was Deep Purple Fireball. And those of you who don't know how that record starts, it starts with just double bass drums. And it was crazy. I mean, I was going, my God. And that became like my Bible, basically. And I've saved up some money and I bought it in rock record and then eventually made Japan. So I learned all that stuff. And I became very, you know, into that band and Blackmore and stuff like that. But then I realized that there has to be some more. So I started listening a lot to my mother's Bach records and Vivaldi and Beethoven. And I started infusing a lot of classical elements into my rock sound through the Marshalls, of course. And then that became a very big impact, you know, as far as chord progressions and stuff like that. And also my older sister listened to the Gabriel Genesis records, which Tony Banks did a lot of these inverted chord progressions and stuff like that I picked up on. And that was great. I thought that was really good to like involve a little more interesting melodies to the hard sound. Because all hard rock, I felt, or I'm pretty sure, was very pentatonic blues based, which is great. But I wanted to go more in the more harmonic minors and diminished and phrygians and stuff like this. Then just about that time, I watched TV again. There was only two TV channels in Sweden, so you know when you got to watch it, you know you kind of watched it, you know, attentively. And it was a performance by a Russian violinist that was playing a cappella violin that I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't just believe it. I was going, what is this? And I found out it was Paganini's 24 Capriccios, which is the most advanced classical violin piece. It's written by Niccolo Paganini in the 19th century. And so I picked that up and I started listening to that a lot. And that's how I developed a lot of my arpeggios and linear scales. And so my biggest influence on my guitar playing is actually violin. Yeah, but I kept that hard edge that I felt from that day when I got the Purple Fireball and in rock records, you know, and that till this day I can put that on. I think is still great, you know. I mean, really hard stuff.
You must have been kind of in a league of your own. You're in Stockholm, you're 15 or 16 or 17 years old, but you need to get a drummer, you need a bass player. How could you find someone that's on that same level?
It's a funny thing, because just last summer I was doing a show in Stockholm, and my grade school teacher turned up from a 3rd grade. And she'd kept all my drawings. I was drawing a lot. And one of the drawings was a poster I've drawn from a show when I was 11 years old. A little show that I put on in my school. It was, Track on Earth, rock and roll, whatever. Something I drew and so that was 30 years ago. And so I put together little groups around me from the very beginning. I figured, I can't just by myself, So I started like really early with bands, bands, 10, 11 years old and stuff like that. And then I moved into, we had a house in the suburbs, but in city, Stockholm, my uncle had built a studio in the 50s. And so I inherited that and put together more proper stuff. And hence I formed groups around myself mainly with a bass player and a drummer, and I would just be the singer, lead guitar player, and we recorded a lot and made a lot of demos and stuff. That became Rising Force, and I had a lot of different lineups. But until I left for America, that's what I was doing. My style was very different. The only other bands that were around towards the end of that era was a band that later became Europe, and they were more, in the normal vein, whereas I was going a little more crazy, neoclassical, very, very heavy stuff. But at the same time, also very, I liked the early, ELP and Genesis and, progressive rock too. So I infused a lot of that, a little more advanced, more adventurous.
So was it that you were so different that it would have been difficult to get a record deal, or did that come quite easy?
Well, in Sweden, it wouldn't really matter at the time, in the late 70s. In the late 70s in Sweden, it wasn't a good market for rock, And I would always dream about going to England or something, and I would buy Sounds and Melody Maker, on the train. I was going to read, Kerrang wasn't even out, didn't even exist, This is long before. This is like New Musical Express, Sounds, Melody Maker. I would buy those, and I would look, and I was thinking maybe I could do something there, because I recorded a lot of stuff, and I did get some place with it, because I got won some awards, free studio time, and then actually CBS got interested for a short while, but that kind of didn't happen, But I was, it wasn't until later on Sweden became more of a rock place.
So where were you resident when you made Rising Force?
Oh, it's Stockholm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I grew up there. I was born and raised in Stockholm. Although, about 10 miles outside I had a house. We lived in my mother's house. But my grandmother had a big building in the city, so I would spend a lot of time there. And, it was mainly... It was right there in the city, south side of Stockholm. And but eventually, I sent tapes out to. Actually, I bought another every day I would buy these magazines in the newsstands, and one of them that just came out called the Guitar Player magazine, which was American. And all of a sudden, I saw this thing. It says, "Send your tape in. We'll put you in the spotlight column." And I'm like, "Wow, cool. That's never going to happen, but why not?" So I did, and believe it or not, it did happen. They did put me in it, and they called me up and said, "Whoa, man, you got to come over and record here in the States." And see what happened in Sweden. I had all these groups that I, put around myself. One was called Powerhouse, and one was called Rising, and then it became Rising Force, which was a power trio, which is me, drummer, and a bass player. And we did a lot of recording, but it never was albums, yeah. And I played around town and stuff in some festivals. Wood Stockholm was one of them. It was very cool, and that was the biggest one I did. And so then that happened. I got the offer to join the band Steeler in the States. So I left all that behind, and I went to the States to record with Steeler, and eventually with Alcatraz. And then when I was with Alcatraz, we went to Japan. And in Japan, they offered me a solo deal, and I called that Rising Force. So that became, quite successful, the Grammys and everything like that. But it was two different kind of things,
Yeah.
I guess the Rising Force thing was sort of like my thing, no matter what, if I did it there or here or whatever.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about guitar playing now. And I guess the first thing is, do you still practice? How does that work? What's your daily routine?
I never practiced, ever. You know, I know it sounds funny, but I never did, because practicing entails repetition, and I never did that. But I did play a lot. And I played, I'm talking hours and hours and hours. I would play on the train, I would play on the bus, I would play in my studio, I would play in my house, fall asleep with the guitar, wake up with the guitar, for years, many years. But it wasn't practicing, it was just playing and improvising and coming up with new stuff. And I did that for many years. And it really doesn't go a day without me playing. I do play all the time, you know. But I concentrate more on composition and recording.
Do you use an acoustic for that?
No, mostly electric. I play acoustic too, you know.
Your legendary, fast speed of guitar playing. Do you do some kind of finger thing to keep those supple, to keep that style?
No, I never did anything like that. I never did any exercises or anything like that, as far as the speed. It's a really funny thing that will happen. For a long time, I was still staying with my mom, but I would go into the city every day to record in that studio that my uncle had built. And the cassette recorder in the studio would run a little bit slower than the one at home. I'm talking just a little bit slower. So I would record every day, and I had this philosophy that whatever I do today has to be better than I did yesterday. I had every day. It's not like, oh, maybe tomorrow. No. Today I gotta be better than I was yesterday. And by better, that means faster and cleaner and more difficult stuff. I had this crazy idea that there was no limit to all that. So what happened was that I would listen to, before I went back to sitting on the tube, I would listen to what I did the day before, and I would go, that's pretty fast. That's pretty good. Well, gotta top that. So every day, little small increments, like it went faster and faster and faster, And I thought it was maybe the guitar got out of tune because it was cold outside, because it was carrying on a train, whatever. So crazy, funnily enough, that's one of the reasons. And also that I would always have this philosophy that, if you can't play it perfectly clean and with accuracy, don't play it. So it was a combination of playing it very, articulate and slightly faster, slightly faster, slightly faster. It was pretty nuts.
Do you feel under any pressure though from fans now who want you to go faster and faster and faster? Is there?
Yeah, but see, fast is not necessarily better. You see, if you don't play fast, if you don't play, whatever you play, it has to be something that has substance, and whether it's fast or not, that's secondary. But if it is fast and it has substance and it's played accurately, then it's okay. And that's something I learned also from Paganini, because if you listen to the 24 Capricious, you have a lot of movements where it's just like long notes like this, and then flurry of notes, very strong impact. So, I think it's dangerous to think that playing fast all the time is good, I know that a lot of people say that I do that, but I don't, actually, if you listen closely.
So the music has to come first, really.
Well, the melody, the melody. Like to quote Mozart, melody is music, music is melody.
When did the love affair with Fender Strat start?
Well, it's originated with seeing, obviously, Hendrix and Blackmore playing the Strat. And also that, that I felt that, there couldn't possibly be a better one. If there is, I've never seen it. So that became like the one I wanted. And then for years and years and years, of course, it took me a while before I could get proper one, yeah. Because they were quite expensive back then. Still are, I think. But now, of course, so many years later, this is like a part of me now. It's just, I couldn't imagine playing anything else, In fact, there's a little funny little story about that too. In Sweden, when I grew up, me and my brother would always get this post-order catalogs, and these post-order catalogs would sell everything from model airplanes to little hot rod cylinders for your moped to make it a little faster, to electronics, to little fireworks and little all sorts of things. This crazy catalog, and they started selling electric guitars. And the first electric guitar I ever got was one of them. It was about equivalent of 16 pounds. And it was not that good, but it was a solid electric guitar, and I was very happy with that. And I just found out that recently that particular catalog now stepped up a bit, so they sell now Squier Fender Strats in that same catalog, still around. And funnily enough, the caption under the guitar says, the most famous electric guitar used by people as, in this order, Yngwie Malmsteen, Jimi Hendrix, and Richard Blackmore. So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting concept. Very proud of that.
And of course, more importantly, there is now the Malmsteen signature.
Indeed, yeah. And also, I'm also very proud to say that I have a Malmsteen Fender Stratocaster model. The Stratocaster Yngwie Malmsteen model, whatever you want to call it. And that, in fact, I just got it updated now. And it's really, really perfect, and I love it.
Tell me about what other instruments you play other than the guitar.
I play drums. But on the records and all the albums, virtually all of them, I play the bass, which is really the instrument that I insist on playing that on the records. The drums I played almost as long as I play guitar, although I couldn't say I'm that great on drums, but I love to play drums. I play keyboards, I play sitar, I play a little bit of cello, very little, and I sing. I play keyboards.
You play sitar? That's interesting. I didn't
Yeah, I do.
A lot of practice?
Well, I do it kind of my way, I mean, I'm sure there's a more proper way of doing it, but I do, yeah. I like the sound of it.
Yeah, it's a great sound.
Yeah.
What's your bass of choice?
That's a Fender. I have a lot of basses. I have a lot of Fender Precisions and some jazz fretless ones, and I got a couple of Rickenbackers too. They got a special sound. My favorite's Fender, of course.
Do you pretty much have every guitar you want now?
Oh yeah.
There's nothing.
More than I want, really. No, I have. Oh my God, yeah. I have a lot of guitars.
How many would you say?
I can't really. I think. I mean, it's 150, maybe. I don't know, something like that. That's a lot of guitars. I used to deliberately go and collect them. I don't do it anymore. I would really get into getting the 50s and stuff. I have one of the 10 first ever made, which is March '54, first month, first year. March '54, and in October '54 they started making it with my machine. So they made 10 guitars every month from March till October 1954, and I have one of those. In fact, the first month. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just incredible.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Then I got some prototypes that I found that even the people from Fender are going like, "Wow, I can't believe you got that." I found them in places, England and stuff.
And you're, of course, known for the scalloped.
Yeah.
Tell me how that came about.
Well, when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of things with wood in my hands. I used to build model planes, and I took a little gig as an apprentice in a luthier shop in the city instead of going to school. And some guy brought in a 16th, 17th century lute that had the wood carved out like that, and it looked really cool, I thought. And so I did it on one of my not so good guitars, and I really liked the way it felt. I started doing it on all of them, and more and more and more. And so that's something that I've done now for many years, and it's a little different if you. But a lot of my friends have actually adopted it. Like Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan and Uli John Roth. They picked it up. They said, "Well, I like that," so they started doing it too, but not on the whole neck.
What do you think that brings to the music then? To us people
Well,
who
no,
can't play?
I mean, it's just basically what it is. It gives you a little more control of the vibrato and stuff like that. It does not make it easy to play fast. That's for sure. No.
Does it give a different sound, or is it all to do with technique?
No. It's more of playability, basically.
So I guess you would pick a certain instrument for a certain song. You would pick a certain vocalist.
Well, no, I like to have singers that are very versatile, and the singers once again have a lot of. To me, I'm extremely picky with it, very, very particular, and the pitch is extremely important. The timbre is very important, but the most important thing is the vibrato. If the singer don't have a good vibrato, then the cause is gone, is lost cause, and I often find it very difficult to understand that people don't pick up on that when they listen to albums. And, I hear singers that sound like a goat. I don't like that. It has to be a controlled vibrato, like an opera singer. It shouldn't be an involuntary function, like a goat, would sound. And I won't mention names. None of them my singers, but I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Yeah,
You use Doogie a lot.
Yeah, well, that's just me. I mean, I'm very, I'm into the operatic thing.
Musicians you'd most like to play with in a perfect world. Who are your favourite? You're the consummate musician. Who are your favourite musicians?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, obviously my biggest heroes, so to speak, the people that I truly admire, what has given me the most influence, inspiration, and all of that, they're all not here. The great composers, and the great virtuosos, Niccolo Paganini, Franz Liszt, Tchaikovsky's violin concertos. I went to see, me and my wife went to see Itzhak Perlman play Tchaikovsky. It was just fantastic, Stuff like that. I mean, today there's a lot of great classical musicians that can play that stuff. But once again, that's the originators of that. They're all gone, so to speak. And as far as rock goes, I mean, my heroes, they're all the old stuff. Queen, Purple,
Richie especially.
The early stuff, everything from in rock to Made in Japan to Rainbow Rising. Yeah, come on, that was my first show ever. When I was 12 years old, I went to see a show at the Royal Concert Hall in Stockholm, Rainbow Rising, with Ronnie, Richie, and Cozy.
Yeah, that was Ronnie.
Yeah. That was. Ronnie has become a very good friend of mine since then. I mean, we've known each other. It's the first guy I met when I came to the States. We used to hang out a lot.
Can this go any further? Rock guitar playing, rock influence with the way you see rock, your version. Can that go any further, or have you gone taken that as far as it can go now?
I think that if you're an author, let's say Stephen King or Clive Barker, my favorite, or H.P. Lovecraft or whatever, somebody that really takes a genre to the, Now, as far as technique goes, there's only so many letters, there's only so many words you can use. Now, it's how you use it and where you go with that, It's not like I'm going to sit down now and practice and come up with something crazy that's going to top what I've done before, because that's not the point, is it now? What the point is to take what I've learned through all the years and what I've accomplished as a composer, musician, whatever, and bring that to an exciting place that always begins with making it exciting for me, thinking, oh wow, yeah, this is exciting. Not to follow trends, not to do what everybody else does, because that's something I've never done and I never will, So I will always go where it takes me, so to speak. And if it takes me to a place where I think is exciting, then that's where I'm going to go. And I know it's kind of vague, but that's all I can say really about that. I don't have a direction. I don't want to go in a direction. I want to just let it happen, And I always felt that the best songs, the best performances I've done always came that way. Because there's been times when I try to, oh, well, if I do this, it might go on the radio. Or if I do this, might be, the more, the harder new metal crowd or whatever. And I gave that up completely now. So I'm just going for what I feel is exciting. And the cool thing about it is that it still is to me. I can pick the guitar. Like when I just switched on the Marshalls now, a moment ago, I go, yeah, this is good. I like this. Just the loudness of it makes me happy. So that will automatically bring me to places that I want to be. So that's how I look at it.
It's a great answer. And finally, life on the road. You tour all the time, somewhere, most of the time. Is life on the road as good as it ever was? Or, I mean, we were talking off camera about the restrictions now on live shows and what you can and can't do. Just tell me a little about life on the road now.
Well, I think everything nowadays, obviously, speaking for myself, everything's a lot more business-like. But I don't want to allow, even though I'm more business nowadays, and I'm not saying money-wise, I'm talking about performing. I go on stage, I'm going to give you guys a show that you're going to remember next year. So, I mean, everybody's straight, stuff like that, which is different from, let's say, 20 years ago, when no one was straight, And so now we're all together, very tight as a group, and myself, we take care of business, go on stage, and boom, that 2 hours, that's going to be, pristine. Now, that's all good. As far as the traveling goes, that doesn't bother me at all. I love to be on a tour bus. It's like a house on wheels, It's very comfortable. I don't mind, watching a DVD, wake up, next town, rock and roll, no problem. Not a problem with that. It's become, of course, a little less, you can't be as free. You can't set guitars on fire. Sometimes you can't even use smoke machines. Bums me out a bit. But I try to roll with those things and just make sure the show is something that the kids are going to go back and wow. Because you got to remember something. Nowadays, kids don't have to go stand in line when it's raining outside or whatever, trying to find a parking spot, buy a T-shirt for the girlfriend, whatever. It's not like the old days. To get the kids to come out to the shows nowadays, you got to remember you can't just let them down, And it's a pride thing also. So yeah, I mean, I just came off an American leg and went like clockwork, Really good, really good. And so did the European and the American leg before them. Japan is Japan, no different. So yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. I think that my last tour I ever did was recently was very, very enjoyable. Everybody was very on the money, on the ball. It was no unnecessary stuff.
Terrific.
Which there has been a lot in the past. People getting out of control and doing bad things, and the tour has to be cancelled, and it's the old stuff. I couldn't deal with that anymore. So that's the big difference.
For years now, you've had a love affair with the Japanese, and very much them with you. Can you just tell me about your feelings of?
Right. See, the thing is, I was very lucky that after I left the Steeler thing, I joined. I put the group together rather with Graham Bonnet, and we did a record, and then we went on tour. And I was only 19 years old. Went to Japan, and Graham Bonnet had been in a band called Rainbow, and if in the early 80s, if you had anything to do with Rainbow, Deep Purple, anything like that, it was automatic. You didn't have to start from scratch. That was it. And so we were very lucky. Well, actually, I was very lucky that we got to play the really big places, get all the big press in Japan the first time round. The album went gold, and I got a solo deal out of it. As soon as I came there, they said, "Oh wow, this kid, we need him to do something on his own." So the Rising Force thing that I got was actually meant to be on the side of Alcatraz, which is a long story, but it turned out not to be like that. But yeah, so no, it was great, and the Japanese have been wonderful all these years, and every time I just came back out of there last Christmas, it was incredible. Really, really good. I mean, basically, I feel in a lot of ways that my career started there in a way, you know. And they really took me in, and it was a great thing. It was a great thing.
That's great. Thanks, Yngwie.
Thank you.